Good day to you. This is Anagalactic on the 28th of April. It's toward evening. We're getting toward the end of the month and on into late spring and summer. Here in Chico, I have been producing science on this YouTube channel for 3 years and have made 950 videos. If you're tuning in for the first time, things are kind of at a lull, so this is a good time to tune in because I'll be quite freeform. Over here you see what appears to be an explosive object. My goodness. It looks like it's in the night sky because those appear to be stars all the way around it. Actually, most of those are galaxies. So this is galactic scale, an excellent photograph taken by one of our space telescopes. I'm just going to expand this just a little so you can see the sidebar. This is a composite photo from 3 different telescopes, completely different telescopes. It's not like you can just dial this and get from visible light to X-ray and from X-ray to radio. You need specially constructed telescopes that don't look anything like the telescopes that you and I are accustomed to seeing. An X-ray telescope, you can't even tell that it is a telescope. As for a radio telescope, you can stand on it and walk around and not even know that you're walking around on a radio telescope. So what you're looking at is an exploding galaxy. It's being born. Astronomers don't know this, although some do. There's quite an interesting situation out in science in general, but particularly in astronomy and subatomic physics. Of course, biology was co-opted long ago. You can't find out anything that's true. You won't be able to get any direction for your life. Now, what I do is to fill in that blank. The problem is, in my society, in my culture, which is somewhat transnational now. I'm not just speaking to an American audience, although I conceive of myself certainly as speaking to an English-speaking audience. But the situation is quite difficult for me now because after having produced 950 videos about science such that you might actually get something out of it and maybe grow up, turn into a real man, or somehow fulfill your life in a constructive way, that is out of the question now. And I'm facing the same situation that I did after my 30-year tour of the churches, which was catastrophic. I figured science, of course, you always have an inroad in science. So I learned science. It took me 16 years to learn science. You could say it took me a decade to catch up. And that's necessary for anyone who wants to be a scientist. You at least have to catch up with what science already knows. If you're interested in the truth, what have men discovered? Well, we certainly have discovered a lot in outer space. But what you're looking at over here has been known about for well over 50 years. It's simply a galaxy that has 2 plumes coming out of it, but you see, nobody knew that when it was first discovered. It was first discovered in the radio band, and those 2 explosive jets, by the way, those are kiloparsecs long. They're thousands of light years long. So you're looking at a galaxy. It's exactly the same scale as a galaxy, such as a spiral or a so-called elliptical galaxy. And you can see the 2 arms are beginning to form. By the way, if you are a careful observer, if you take a closer look at this, or preferably have someone like me point out to you what you're seeing, you'll see that one of the plumes up in the upper left-hand corner is quite a bit brighter than the one down in the lower right-hand corner. And that's because it's spinning. And the one to the lower right is spinning away from us. And the one in the upper left is spinning toward us. And that produces a difference in the light profile. But you can see it's turning into a spiral galaxy. That's true, it is. It's turning into a spiral galaxy. So what you're seeing is the birth of a spiral galaxy. Now what's at the center is obviously the generator. That's the nucleus of the galaxy before it became the brightest thing in the universe. That center there that you see is statistically the brightest thing in the universe. It's called a quasar. And a quasar has a history because men did not know what that thing was when they first saw it. And it was studied quite intensively in the 1960s. Halton Arp made tremendous inroads in our understanding of exploding galaxies. He was an expert on the subject. But alas, the same thing happened that happened to Galileo. The same thing happened that would have happened to Copernicus if he hadn't died before he was burned at the stake. But Halton Arp endured the modern equivalent of being burned at the stake by Catholic inquisitors. And those Catholic inquisitors at the time called themselves the Big Bang Cartel, a mafiosa of scientists under the control of the government. You had to support the Big Bang. You had no choice, or you would be thrown out of science. And that is what happened to Halton Arp, one of the greatest astrophysicists of all time. He and Fritz Zwicky, who operated mostly in the 50s and earlier, Arp came later and operated in the 60s and on into the 70s, but both men were blackballed and expunged from the industry for one reason. They're heretics. They refused to go along with the Big Bang madness. But the government had already decided that it was too dangerous for the public to become quickly acquainted with the glories of heaven because it might induce them to become religious. Because studying objects like what you see on the screen induces a religious reaction. Not in Americans, though. Americans are too far gone. And I've found that out. That's why I'm somewhat depressed. I think you can imagine why I might be depressed if I'm trying to reach people with the truth that would set them free, that would make you happy and productive, that would make you pleasing in the eyes of heaven or God if you believe in God, which you should, but of course you don't. That's another trend that I saw operative throughout my lifetime, and now it's concluded. The job is done. There is no more religious. There's nothing. Nobody even thinks about God in the United States. And all the stereotypes come back so that we're going right back to like the 1920s or even back to the 19th century. Instead of progress being made in America, America has become the most retarded society of people on earth. And that is somewhat weighed against a scale because most humans are just incapable of thinking. They just can't do it for very long. So they suffer and can't get out of their trap. They turn to Buddhism or God knows what in order to rectify the traumatic situation inside a human consciousness. You simply cannot endure your youth and your confrontation with reality with brutality and warfare and ultimately just a natural death. That's impossible to digest. And if you don't do something about it, you'll die horribly because there's no future for you. You don't know who you are. You don't know what you are. You don't know what this is. You don't know why you're here. And all you see as you grow up is increasing evidence that then becomes overwhelming that you've been born into hell. If you're into karma or, reincarnation, I don't recommend that, but as a Gedanken experiment, it looks like you're goddamned from all eternity and this is just one of your incarnations in hell. Just to give you some perspective on that, because you're oblivious to your surroundings, I'll just tell you, Israel has already won. Israel and the United States are now synonymous. And there's no such thing as your vote. There's no such thing as democracy. There never was. But look at my the people around me are Americans. Well, I don't belong here. I simply don't fit. I never did. From the earliest age, it was observed of me that I just seem to be naturally happy. And I just don't get involved in any of the shit. Of course I have, though. But as one gets older, one is supposed to become more mature. That does not happen in America. It just doesn't happen. There's no training. You need to have a guide. Well, in Islam, there are plenty of guides. And so the Islam people are stable. They're happy people. They're people who have a hope for an afterlife. Americans have none. No perception of the future whatsoever. Well, that's called psychosis. And by the way, that's the only correct definition of psychosis. There are temporary cases of psychosis that become obvious if a person is dissociated from reality. Well, that's a relative condition. Endemic psychosis, or you could say pandemic psychosis, is when people are so stupid, so ignorant, and so turned off, so traumatized, that they can't face reality. There's no such thing any longer. Americans have no perception of reality. That's why they go to the internet hoping that their goddamn scientists are going to fill them in, give them some clue which way to look. Well, then you go out to Lex Friedman and you end up with listening to interviews and presentations of so-called scientists, all of whom are paid by the government, all of whom believe in natural selection, all of whom are atheists, all of whom believe the universe is expanding, and most of them think the universe is made of particles. Incredible situation, considering the amazing progress made in science in the 20th century, that people have become stupider and stupider and stupider, and now there's no recovery possible. So this leaves a huge gap for the enemy of all life to fill in. That's something you may have heard of that you do believe in, but not by its name, Satan. You look down on that because you're so smart, because you're psychotic and out of touch with reality. You couldn't tell the difference between reality and what you see on the internet if your life depended on it. No perspective, no choices. You're railroaded into a puppy-loving, music-indulging, pathetic human. So the true role of man, as I'm attempting to fulfill in my life, whether anyone else does or not, never has concerned me. Although, obviously, I'm altruistic, I'm compassionate, I want to be a good man. It's not possible. I'll continue to do my best and continue to make myself pleasing in the sight of heaven so that I will certainly die happy. I made it. I'm done. I'm just here to help now. Really, that's always been the case with me. Since my mid-teens, I've known directly who God is. I know everything about Jesus, the Bible. Now I'm an expert on Islam and the religion that came before Islam, Christianity, and the motherfucking Israeli Empire. All that information is still available to a modern man. Recently, I've shown you that you can read the Book of Enoch now. 2 centuries ago, you couldn't. It had been lost because the Jews got rid of it. It was expunged from the Bible because it indicts them. And Hanok is his name, but you know him as Enoch. I know him as Hanok because I speak the ancient languages. And it's just remarkable that I sit here among Americans trying my best. First through the churches, I discovered how to decode the Tetragrammaton, and I am the only man on earth. There's actually a handful of others who knew me at that time, who know the actual name of your Creator. You don't even believe there is a Creator, so you could not care less about His name. And you'll never care about the Sabbath that could have saved your life by now, and now it's too late. You'll never understand the lunar Sabbath, And so you'll never understand a fucking word I say about geometry. And it's just amazing. I figured out the Sabbath for the Protestant churches of America. I was excommunicated. Just an incredible situation. A man like Halton Arp or Fritz Vicky, they just get excommunicated from the scientific community. Who are the motherfuckers who are controlling this? Who are pulling the strings to suppress truth? So consistently, they can't be stopped now. They've won. The new atheism is on top. William F. Buckley Jr. was one of the last men to speak out in America against the rising new atheism. Now, by law, it's law. The law of the United States is your child will be brainwashed with natural selection. And now, today, certainly as of the 1960s, your child will not graduate unless your child believes in the Big Bang. So there's two magnificent lies. Nobody knows where anybody comes from on Earth, with the partial exception of the Americans who came from Europe. But you see, so did the Israelis that are there now. They came from Europe. That's why they're white. What are they doing there? Well, it's an imperialist action of the West. Well, that's exactly where the Udins live, is in the West. They don't really live in China or India or South America or Japan. They don't live there. They don't live in Africa, except the extreme north of Africa. No, the Yehudins are European whites now. They turned white because a tribe that goes that far north from the Levant changes from brown to white. We've seen it happen. And yet all your children are taught that people came from Africa because they originated as baboons, because baboons are black. And so obviously it's a racist ploy. It didn't begin that way. Charles Darwin was not a racist, or if he was, it didn't show up in his book. But Charles Darwin merely pointed out that at the generic level of all creatures, they specify. And that was extrapolated, and now you have guys like Stephen Jay Gould, and then you have some pseudo-experts such as Richard Dawkins. There's tens of thousands of these professors now that literally stare your children right in the face and tell them that they're from monkeys. And there's nothing you can do about it unless you want to go to jail. Because unless you put your child through that prison system, your child will be an illegal alien. Your child has to be an atheist now. There's no such thing as God. Jesus has been crucified again. And the Islam people, the last hope for the earth, are now targeted for extinction by the Israeli Empire. Just as was going on 3,000 years ago, it's just resumed. Well, what we could hope for, if there is such a ploy available, in the time of David, who was the king of the Israeli Empire, probably at the time of its greatest prosperity, when David died, the kingdom went to his son Solomon, but the kingdom quickly split. So that Judah was the southern kingdom. You could think of it as New England. It's kind of reversed because when the Civil War came to America, the South was the part that dropped out, and the North was the part that had to crush their own people. In Israel, it was the opposite. The South was basically New England, you could say the original Israel, and the 10 tribes in the North seceded. Well, the 10 tribes in the North who were at war with Judah, it was a civil war, basically between Solomon's Judah and Rehoboam, I think, was in the north. I may have that even backwards, but it doesn't really matter much now. The Israelis were fighting each other. Well, that would be ideal if a civil war could break out in Israel so that half of Israel was fighting against the other half. Then it might be possible to mount up an army, perhaps in southern Turkey, and just invade the motherfucking area and send the Yehudins back out. I'm fully in favor of that. I take the side of Iran. I take the side of Hamas and Hezbollah. Get them out. Get them out by any means possible. I recommend dropping a couple of atomic bombs, one on Jerusalem and one on Haifa, and just get rid of it. Because if somebody doesn't do something, or something does not change, then what's going to happen next? Within the next 2 years, the United States of America is going to invade Iran, and there's nothing that can stop that. And when that happens, that's going to signal the end of the world. And then you can start reading Revelation when it's too late, while the pages are burning in your hands. So I'm doing my part. I'm doing my best to do what's real and right. I don't kiss puppies, and I don't listen to shit-ass music. I'm not wasting my time. I don't care about sexual gender. I don't care about politics. And I certainly don't care about deception and lies, except to combat them. So you might be happy, you might grow up, you might actually become pleasing to whatever entities you don't believe in. You will. You will believe in them when it's too late. I say now, it's already too late. I failed just as every prophet in the past failed. I failed the same way Yeshua failed. He had to leave. He was murdered. If it were 300 years ago, I'd be dead already. But these are modern times where we can put up with every form of kook and nut. I thought that I would be able to capitalize on that and maybe insinuate my voice into the mix so that you might have a chance to make some real decisions. It's not possible anymore. I can see you now. I can see you clearly. I've had so many perspectives and so many angles on this. Fighting in the trenches, doing my part. I was a missionary to Ukraine, so shut your fat mouth. Missionary to Ukraine. They believed me. They packed the aisles to listen to me in Kiev and in Yalta. Here, I can't get one goddamn puppy lover to turn a deaf ear toward me. It's instinctual now. I am not part of this society. I never was. I'm a visitor here. You're about to lose your visitor that you never got to know. Well, we'll see what happens in the wash, won't we? I have no fear. It's good that I have no fear. The fact that you have no fear is just the opposite symptom. So today we're going to talk about quantum theory. A book by that name was written by David Bohm, published in 1952, a second edition. And I've already covered that in a video which got, I think, 4 views. Ha! 4 views. After 950 videos, my current series videos get about 4 views. 4! So don't try to tell me that people are interested in the universe and in reality. That is absolutely untrue. People are interested in puppies and shit-ass music. Drugs, sex, everything that every religion warns against. And self-deception, mass deception. Piteous, pitiable, pathetic retardation. I can't stand the sight of my fellow humans anymore. Because I know them. They look at you, they smile, they act like a good robot that's programmed to say hi. And then they always say, have a nice day. They're in a dream world. So we're going to commence with the famous Euclidean axiomatization. This is required now in order to solve the quantum paradox. When I discovered spherical geometry and the 2-component number system that parameterizes physical space, I was amazed that it was consistent, closed, coherent, and rational. So that in itself is worth definitely a Nobel Prize. Now I'm the one living in a fantasy world. If I think that's going to happen, I do live in that fantasy world where things are correct. And there's nothing anybody can do about that, but that's not psychosis. That's anti-psychosis. For you, it's psychosis. For me, it's a curative. So we're going to begin with the Euclidean axiomatization, because that's where I had to begin, to explain somehow why I got this and no one else did. Einstein missed it. All the mathematicians missed it. It's been staring him in the face for at least 2 centuries. And yet nobody's smart enough to see the truth of the number system. So the quantum paradox cannot be solved. It won't be solved. And I discovered why not. It's because you're using a 2,500-year-old one-component number system, whereas we discovered in the 20th century that everything in the universe conforms to a 2-component number system, and nothing in the universe conforms to our linear number system. That means that you'll never see the quantum, you'll never understand the true dynamic balance of the universe. You're going to end up thinking that the universe is expanding, which means that you should just be clubbed to death, you're so stupid. And nobody can find the way out, and now the ignorance is enforced, and there is no way out, except for me. So I'll die with this knowledge, free, because it's true. The truth will set you free. Well, you'll never know what that is. You'll never go free. You're a slave. I'm tempted to use the N-word, but things are so locked down now, I can't even use a useful word to describe what you are, so that it'll hit you below the belt, for Christ's sake. I can't call you an N-word. It would be considered racist. So everything's upside down now. So we go back to Euclid. The only known basis of any geometry is Euclid's line, which means you have to begin with Euclid's point. I redefined that forever. I know the true trans-Euclidean point, which defines the quantum eventually, and answers all the questions in physics. The collapse of the wave function, which Paul Dirac said is the only problem that needs to be answered now, and that'll get everything. He's right. I got it. I know exactly how to geometrically and mathematically describe the collapse of the wave function. Your physicists cannot. Your mathematicians cannot. And I proved in 2023 they never will. They have to listen to me now. Well, it's too late. That's not going to happen. But it's the same thing with Yeshua, the same thing with any prophet, any wise man. We're not going to stop just because you're too retarded to listen. We're going to go on until you stone us to death. Now, these days, that would be with marijuana, and I approve of that kind of stoning. But there's no hangman's tree. There's no dungeon. There's no crucifix. I'm not going to be crucified with my Lord. But by Christ, it's the same thing! To optimally expound the Euclidean basis, we will touch upon 3 definitions: the axiom, the definition of geometry itself, and numbers. It's the numbers we need to concentrate on. Nobody has ever done this except John Horton Conway did, and he deserved a Nobel Prize for his discovery of the definition of a number. He discovered that, and even he overlooked it. All the mathematicians around him were too stupid to see what he discovered, but when I found it, it was like something out of a cartoon. My eyes bugged out of my head. There were stars coming out of my skull, that sort of cartoonish thing. I literally was in shock. Pretty much all day, the day that I discovered what John Horton Conway had discovered, because he discovered exactly what I had discovered. Only he put it into a context where he actually fully defined a number. Now, because Conway basically completed Euclid's work, it only remained for a wise man, a true scientist, to put the pieces together. That's what I did. A two-component number system, if it's constructed correctly, parameterizes spherical space, which, as you know, is curved. Well, that defines the universe. Everything is a sphere. You can't look anywhere or think about anything unless it involves a spherical relationship. The Earth is a sphere. The Sun is a sphere. The solar system is a disk. The galaxy is a disk. Most galaxies are spheres. The others are disks. They're all circles and spheres. Everything is. The atom is spherical. The electron is spherical. The proton is spherical. That's it. Is there anything left out? Just one thing. The photon. The photon. See, that's what I was after when I began my studies in astronomy. When I got down to light, as you know, astrophysics has only two portals on the universe. One of them is gravity, the other one is light. I dare you to name another. There are none. There's gravity and light. After 2 years of study using my own geometry, which is correct, not the linear number system, but the spherical number system, I discovered why everything is spherical. I discovered the quantum of gravity, and I discovered how to describe the emission, transmission, and absorption of light, solving Dirac's problem. I've also solved Einstein's problems. I have the unified field solution. I literally have the theory of everything, and that's actually quite specific. The unified field solution is what science ostensibly is looking for now. They'll never find it. I found it. Who knows that? Nobody. So you tell me, what should I do next? I'm supposed to publish a paper. I won't. I refuse. I'm not going to do anything beyond what I'm doing right now in these videos. And then people can call me, if they need to later, a coward or just someone he didn't know, so he never wrote a paper. I don't want you to know, because you'll reject it. I don't accept that. I can't. I would end up cursing you, and that's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life, is cursing you for your stupidity. And that's not directed at any particular human. That's just me venting, which I'm going to do in every video from now on. I'm going to vent, because I don't get to kiss puppies and listen to shit-ass music. I'm a real man. And if I want to vent, I motherfucking will. So you're going to have to turn this off. Get lost! I do this for me. I always have. So to orient the sequence at the outset, we will gain from Bohm's overture a proper regard for the discoveries leading to this century-old paradox. Do you know what the quantum paradox is? No, you don't. But I'll tell you. Then, beginning literally at the beginning, we will find the origin of the geometric and numeric system that served science wonderfully right up until the 20th century. It's remarkable that the beginning of the quantum psychosis began exactly in the year 1900. We shall abbreviate quantum mechanics QM. This is in a paper that I'm typing up. I'll produce the goddamn paper, but nobody's going to read it. Instead of the preface, we sum the 1.5-page introduction to part 1. Bohm opens with two orienting observations. First, quantum mechanics is strictly microscale. Second, math was adapted to the situation. Now that's pretty simple. We're looking at something so incredibly tiny that we can no longer measure it. Well, that was predictable. Bohm points that out. So when you hear about like the quantum black hole or quantum gravity, these men are literally stark staring mad. And Bohm says so. I don't know if you know it or not, but Bohm was kicked out of the industry too. He got a little too mouthy. He talked too much, just like me. So they got rid of him. It's quite a story, Bohm's life. He ended up meeting the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama loved him. Even wrote introduction to one of Bohm's books. And I've given 2 presentations on that, which got maybe a total of 20 views. In other words, nobody gives a fuck. There's no word of mouth. There's no, oh, listen to Great Uncle Sam and Chico. He's giving us the truth. Nope. It won't happen. Bohm now promises to demote math in favor of a physical description. That's why he wrote his 620-page book. Well, I have his book, and I've read... It's not easy reading, okay, but I tried to penetrate it as much as I could. He failed. He could not fulfill his promise. But I picked out the places where he thought that he was giving us the physical description. By the way, if he could have actually done that, it would have been because he understood the quantum paradox. He never did. Nobody ever has except me. I am the only man who understands the quantum paradox. Who can prove it with mathematics and geometry? You have to do that in science. Well, I have. So Bohm then completes his opening paragraph with a dire, if suppressed, warning. We are required to know, as a prerequisite, Fourier analysis. I spent 3 days studying Fourier analysis because of what Bohm said. I just put down his book and started studying Fourier analysis. It took me quite a while. 3 days at this stage of my acumen. I'm rather advanced now, and I'm a pretty quick study, but Fourier analysis is nobody's idea of fun. I mastered it, and I found out why Bohm said what he said. It's because in Fourier analysis, what you end up doing is transferring a linear deconstruction of a wave into a circular deconstruction of a wave. I've already done that by a much easier path of integration. So Fourier analysis is not necessary, and Bohm simply did not know that. So in context, he's absolutely correct. But in context of linear algebra, linear mathematics, the linear tools such as calculus, you're not going to get out of that rat trap. You're already trapped. You're using a one-component number system to describe a two-component universe. By the way, that is extremely profound at several levels. Do you know what the calculus is for? It's for deriving a two-component number from a one-component number solution. And that's the definition of deriving a curve. A curve is a rate. It's a two-component number. Nobody knows that. I proved it. That everything in the universe is a proportional number. We call them fractions generically, but they're actually the dyadic fractions, which is the technical definition of the binary number system. You may know that the binary number system is the number system used by computers. Do you know what the binary number system is? It's a subset of the numbers. And this is where John Horton Conway comes in. What the fuck is a number? Well, I was finally able to define that with the help of John Horton Conway. What exactly is a number? He didn't get it exactly, because on day 2 of his creation sequence, when it goes from split 0 to split 1 to split 2, what made my eyes bug out is that on the day 2 split, you get the binary numbers. Those are the dyadic fractions. And every single number in a computer system is a two-component number. It has to be. Do you know why? Let me ask you some questions to test your knowledge of your computer system. What drives your computer is a number system, yes. Do you know anything about it? Is the number 1 representable? Yes. Is the number 2 representable? Yes. 3? Yes. All the counting numbers are representable in the binary number system. The counting numbers are. What about numbers less than 1? Then it gets tricky. because those are conjugal with accounting numbers. So when you have 2, you also have 1 over 2. Excuse me, there's a little commotion outside. I'm just going to pause this. All right, there had been a little commotion outside. You may notice I've changed. I think you would probably notice that, since it changed over a space of like 1 second. I thought it was dawn. There was a little light in the sky when I woke up from my nap. Mathematicians keep strange hours. Scientists in general note this. And instead of it getting lighter, it got darker, so I checked the clock and it was about 9:30 p.m., so I'm wide awake, or as wide awake as I ever am. So where we left off here was with Fourier analysis, which David Bohm recommends is a prerequisite for understanding just the fundamentals, the simplest form of mathematics, to explain what is known about the quantum mechanical paradox. It turns out that David was doing his best to explain to the public in 1952 just what this quantum mechanical system actually is. And he failed. Just complete, absolute backwards failure. Except for the first 5 pages. The other 620 pages are shit. And he's probably the greatest quantum mechanist who's ever lived. Albert Einstein thought so. So it cannot be explained. And that goes against the Einsteinian principle of science, which is based on the Emersonian principle of science. And these are just random names, not really random, but pulled out of a hat, for a millennia-old point of view on rational logic with respect to the universe. That we can understand it. That we're supposed to understand it. The universe wants us to understand it. And what I've determined, just for your dancing and dining pleasure, is the reason the universe wants us to understand it is in part so that we will use our rational logical system, which will save your life if you use it correctly. And when I say save your life, I don't mean from getting hit by a bus. I mean, save your life to the next level. The whole reason for this game. And I'm getting into a video, which I may begin in this one, since I no longer care too much about who listens to this or why. I'll just do whatever I want since nobody cares. I'll do my best, but I'm not going to do anything to make this easier for you. If you want this to be easy for you, you just simply need to listen. That's all you need to do. Because if you don't do that, it won't matter anyway. Okay? Sorry for the choking fit there. I am dying, and I don't mean to be dramatic. This isn't like a call, send me money to save my life. No, save your fucking puppy's life before mine. Don't worry about me. I endured 3.5 hours of campfire smoke at its highest intensity. It's the most toxic fire smoke, right up there with all time. So now I'm basically developing emphysema. And I have choking fits where sometimes you just don't know if it's the end or not. I'm dizzy all the time now. I am getting sicker and sicker. This, of course, will be the maximum spring for stuff that kills people like me. So I'm on my way out, and I don't expect to live out this summer. I'm 70 and 1/3 years old. I should live to be about 88 or 89. I won't. I may live to 71. That's about it. I'm dying. So it is in the back of my mind now. I'm not accustomed to thinking this way, but it was inevitable. I'm happy, but I know that you're not. So pay attention. We will wind up our own present inquiry, which is to actually explain the quantum paradox for the first time in human history. I can do that now, with a discussion of why Bohm named this one tool as the one prerequisite. You see, Bohm was actually lying there. You absolutely have to master calculus to understand anything in quantum mechanics. It's an absolute prerequisite, except for me. I can show you the secret that unlocks it without calculus. Calculus actually makes it more difficult. Well, you would think so. Calculus is one of the most horrific tools ever invented. And one day, I expect, in the next life, Newton, if he's there among us, will be heartily ashamed. But that's actually quite fanciful. Let's not go there. Bohm devotes his second paragraph to a characterization of the first part of the book. It will be to synchronize experiment with math. So he has a 1.5-page section to introduce part 1 that's on the history of quantum mechanics. It is so well worth reading that it basically is more important than the rest of the book combined, which is about 1,000 equations. It's over 1,000 indecipherable equations. These are the most difficult to understand equations ever written by the human mathematical faculty, proving that we're so far off course that it's ridiculous. Well, I solved that. But it takes intelligence. That's lacking in mathematicians. Mathematicians are not intelligent people. They're monkeys that have been trained to use beads like on an abacus. And now with supercomputers, now there are no checks and balances. They're free to do their mathematics without any relationship to reality whatsoever. That's exactly where science is at in all departments. There are no sciences that will provide you with information that you need for the future. It's just marking time. It's just like listening to your shit-ass music. You're just wasting your time. That adequately introduces part 1. Now we go back to the preface, which is before the table of contents, 2.5 pages long. By far, the most important single monograph ever written on quantum mechanics until I came along. So we now consider the preface first. Quantum mechanics reveals inexplicable phenomena. The key word there is inexplicable. It will never be understood. It is impossible to understand. It cannot be understood. So I hope I've emphasized that. Bohm fully agrees. Fully agrees. And that produces a paradox that ruins life itself. It destroys science in the use of the rational logical system. So that cannot be the case. It's impossible that we would find quantum mechanics impossible to understand. And therefore, it's the fault of the humans. It's a human error. Everyone's blaming the universe like it's playing tricks on us. Like there's some quantum projector. Nothing is real. It's all because of this quantum paradox. Because it's driven the mathematicians stark, raving lunatic. And Bohm got out. He got out basically by the skin of his teeth. And the Dalai Lama supports that opinion. I believe Bohm made it. But you never know with any human, do you? We're such expert deceivers, especially in self-deception. First of all, quantum mechanics reveals inexplicable phenomena. I can explain all the phenomena. All of them. I can explain it fully. And it has to be mathematical, because we can't see it. However, it also has to have a geometry, or there is no purpose to the mathematics. So it's a dual solution in any case, just as it is for general relativity. That does have a geometry. It's just that it's the geometry of someone who's absolutely stark, staring lunatic. It's not a geometry that actually exists. Now, in quantum mechanics, as has been pointed out by such astute observers as Tim Palmer, There is no geometry. None. The reason general relativity works at all, even though it's crippled and it's false, it still works to a threshold because it has a pseudo-geometry. In quantum mechanics, there is no geometry at all. That's exactly the same thing as stating that it cannot be understood. You can't understand anything with numbers. You can only use numbers to support your geometrical solution. It's the geometry that you want to understand, okay? For this reason, that these phenomena are inexplicable, it challenges the entire scientific framework. It's over, children. There is no more progress. There never will be again. Whatever science knew in the year 1900, it stopped there. It stopped there. We have had telescopy and microscopy to continue to probe. We have enough data now to completely solve the paradigms that we need to solve. Well, paradoxes that lead to the paradigm. I've got it, but nobody else can even get close. They're absolutely locked out of my insight. The scientific framework has been challenged, according to David Bohm, in 3 ways, which I will summarize into one statement. Continuity is violated. The idea of the quantum is a violation of continuity, but the entire universe is continuous, and therefore quantum mechanics itself is the most horrific error in judgment ever made in science. A complete mistake. It's because of our number system. The linear number system is quantized on the line. You can't do that. The universe does not allow that. Well, your top scientists say, fuck nature then. Secondly, determinism is violated. None of these statements are true. They're only true in quantum mechanics. So continuity is violated. That's ridiculous. Well, that's what quantum mechanics says. Continuity is violated. Well, you're defying the universe when you say that. So your scientists are too stupid to get out of the trap. The reason they're too stupid is because nobody has realized it's due to the number system. The linear number system that we've had since the Bronze Age. Well, you would think we might have realized by now we have to have a rate system, a proportional system, a 2-component number system. Light speed isn't a number. It's a 2-component number. Light speed is a 2-component number. It has 2 linear numbers. We call it distance and time. So why haven't we switched to a 2-component number system? Because your scientists are idiots. It's so hard for an American to accept that, because we're taught to look up to our scientists. The government taught you to do that. Finally, the third item that Bohm names, the wave nature that was discovered. Basically, Christian Huygens discovered it, and Newton absolutely flipped Huygens off. Huygens got geometrical optics. And it's true, it's used today. But Newton told Huygens to fuck himself, because Newton had a different opinion. He thought that light was made of particles. Well, Newton should be resurrected and beaten to death and then put back in the ground. So here are the 3 things that are violated by the idiot idea that Einstein supposedly proved from Planck's work. That energy is quantized. You see, the problem with that is that it's superpositionally true. And you don't understand that because you don't know anything about Paul Dirac's work. Because your scientists don't explain these things correctly. Superposition is the key to quantum mechanics. So why aren't you taught that? Because it would lead to you understanding it. You're not allowed to understand it. The government will tell you what it means as soon as they figured out the strong force and blown up half the earth. Then they might let you know what you could have known all along. So continuity is violated. That's ridiculous. Determinism is violated. That ends science. And the wave nature of waves, the wave form, violates particle nature. So nobody knows what a wave is. I'll tell you the stark staring fact, nobody knows what a particle is, except I do. And I'm the only man who knows what a particle is. I'm also the only man who can explain what is a wave. Einstein could not. Dirac could not. Feynman could not. Penrose, who's 93 years old and still kicking, he doesn't know what it means. I do. Bohm concludes his preface by recommending a radical restructure. Does he have any suggestions? No. But he says, to summarize his whole life's work, everything that Bohm learned in his lifetime, he can sum up with one recommendation. Listen to Scott Allen Miller. When Scott gets here, he'll be in Chico. He'll tell you. And then he concludes his preface, that is, David does, by thanking Oppenheimer and Bohr. And he ends his preface, and he begins the mathematics that he promised he wouldn't mention. So he failed. No, he didn't. He gave me something I needed. And anybody who gives me something I need did not fail. That includes Einstein. That includes Bohr. I wish I could say it includes Feynman, but I do include him. I do like scientists. I just don't like scientists acting like jackasses. So this is just a little something I wrote. That's an hour. I want to torture you with very long lectures from now on, so you'll give up. I want you to go away. I'm doing this for me. I'm getting ready to die. I will not abrogate my duty. However retarded you are, or however retarded you insist on staying, it's not going to affect what I do. Yes, it makes me angry. I'm supposed to be helping you. You don't want to be helped. So I'm going to hurt you instead. That's love. That's what happens. And fuck you! So this is the story of the game. And that's 1 hour. I'm just kidding. I'll start another video. We'll close this off at 1 hour. I'm so sorry that you're so stupid. I'm very sorry that your scientists are torturing you, but there's nothing I can do to help you now. So fuck you. Keep looking up though, there's still hope.